fascinated by the topic. It's like this thing is, we've all got to be fearless. You know this idea we have to be fearless. There's something rather macho and rather masculine orientated about this concept of fearless leadership quite often in the old school, which is kind of bizarre. And it has then resonances of toxic masculinity and alpha maledom. And it's rather bizarre, but we'll talk about that and we'll see that there's nothing like that. But let's have the next slide. Okay, yes, well done, good job. It's a teamwork here, fantastic. So that's actually a statue, a very famous statue in New York called Fearless Girl. And they put it outside the stock exchange there to represent, so much I think about what fearlessness means. Thank you. Okay, so I love this quote, cowards die many times before their death, the brave valiant never tasted death but once. And I think that's really true. When we start to think about what fearlessness means and what is a useful concept for us, what does that mean? Okay. So these are the questions that you won't be able to read, so I'm going to read it out for you. So the first thing, I'd like us to think a little bit about whether you are fearful or fearless. Just think for yourself. Am I more fearless when I am loving or hating? Any ideas? More fearless when I'm loving or hating? Loving. Yeah, that's so true. Well done. I saw you. Well done, lady. You get the first hand clap for the first interactor of the day. Well done. Brilliant. Well done. Great job. Fantastic. What about when I'm standing up for myself or when I'm being amused? Absolutely. When I'm being selfish or selfless? Fascinating, isn't it? When I'm treating people as equal or treating them as greater or lesser than me? Equal. So this is fascinating, isn't it? When I'm being creative or being conservative? This is a good crowd. Okay, come and do an MBA with us. This is great. We like smart people. When I'm protecting myself or being vulnerable? Yeah, vulnerable, yeah. When I'm taking accountability or blaming others? Yes, absolutely. Thank you very much. When I'm seeing failure as learning or failure as disaster? Yes, I've done my bit now, I'm off. It's all done. My work here is done. When I have to be perfect, or if it's okay to be imperfect? When it's okay to be imperfect. So let's just think about this concept of fearlessness in our broad lives and see what it means. Change, thank you. You can't even read that. Change, thank you. So what is leadership? Bingo. There you are. I love this quote, and leadership is not about, look at me, I'm so great. Yes, admire me, I am the greatest. No, leadership is not about making yourself great, but surely it's about making others great. You know, I'm an educator. It's no good being an educator and walking across and look at me, I'm the great professor. Put your hands out for the pearls of wisdom for my wonderful. You don't want that. That's rubbish. That's the old school. That's how learning used to be. You know, educators must make people thrive. They must make them grow. They must make them into something. Our job is to do that. And our job as leaders, and as fearless leaders, is to be fearless. Somebody said to me once, when you're recruiting somebody, make sure you recruit somebody who can do your job, who can take your job. Make sure you recruit somebody who can take your job. That's fearless. I did it once, the best decision I ever made in my life. He was far better than me. He's gone flying, but it was absolutely a dream to do that. I'm looking at David there, he's just joined us. That's why I recruited him as well. He's probably better than me, so I hope so. A leader is a dealer in hope, said Nelson Bonaparte. Okay, change, thank you. So is it good to be fearless? Well, yes. You know, our fear is often fantasy, isn't it? You know, in the absence of information, fantasy reigns, and fantasy is not always good. We're often too scared to see the truth, let alone to say it. We get so wrapped up in our beliefs, in our sort of identity politics, in who we are, what we think we must believe in our social identity. It actually distorts the way we see truth. Fear makes us less available. Would you agree with that? Emotionally available. Do you want your partner to be fearless or fearful? Fearless. You want fearless respect, right? You want them to be respectful, you don't want them to be fearful. Some people do, and that's abuse. We don't like that. And the more bold action you take, the more chance you have of learning something. But why isn't it? Sociopaths are fearless. Don't be a sociopath. Bad. Sociopath, bad. Okay. Fear warns us of danger, so we don't want to just ignore all the fear we have. Of course, we have to, fear is very, very useful. It's there for a bit. And fools rush in where angels fear to tread. There's a little quote here from Taylor Swift, that incredible savant and philosopher, and it says, to me, fearless is having fears. Fearless is having doubts. Lots of them. To me, fearless is living in spite of these things that scare you half to death. Change. Thank you. Okay. So fearlessness. Firstly, when you can either pull little levers in your job and your life, or you can pull the big levers. Was it Archimedes, the old Greek philosopher, said, give me a lever long enough and I can move the world. Pull the big levers in your life. Make the big things happen. Fearless enough to have a voice, to say what you think, and maybe even face public criticism. We're really scared of being shamed in public. We have to be able to do that. Feel enough to face our own ego and our own shadows. Feel enough to step up and grow into greatness. That's important. Fearless enough to know that you only borrow a job. You are not your job. I'm sorry. You borrow a job. There's a job. There is you. You sit inside your job for a while. You make it better. And you pass that job along to somebody else. You are not your job. You borrow your job. It's really hard when we put so much identity into our job. Fearless enough to be nothing. To be nothing. Just to be an insignificant, normal, ordinary person. Fearless enough to know that ordinary is beautiful. Ordinary is great. Being human, being a normal human, is a fantastic, wonderful gift. We don't have to fantasize what else we need to be. We just need to be a good human. Okay. Fearless enough to fight for a purpose. Fearless enough to be fair, even when it's your friends. And finally, fearlessness is about optimism, not about pessimism. Have you ever met a fearless cynic? Well, you have, but normally cynics are passionate people who've been disappointed once too often. Right? So just understand underneath. Okay, change, please. I love this story about Mo Ibrahim. Mo Ibrahim, you probably all know his story. He launched Cellnet. He's a Sudanese British businessman. And back in the 90s, he decided that he would provide cell phone operations across East and West Africa, where nobody had phones, there was no ground infrastructure, and all the people said, you're mad, it's crazy, there's no infrastructure down there, it's all corrupt, and nobody will invest in it. And all his peers laughed at him. Laughed and laughed. And he turns out to be a really good guy, He built this company in 1998. He sold it for $3.4 billion. He's about the 700th richest man in the world, worth over coming on to $1.5 billion at least. And his company is famous for never having paid a bribe. His company is famous for never having paid a bribe. His company is famous for never having paid a bribe. Okay, just understand that matters. Okay. And he's giving away most of his money. He's a really cool dude. Change, please. Okay. So, what if I'm a coward? I can't be fearless. Oh no. Deep down I'm a coward. We don't think. Well, actually, the best thinkers always feel fear. Because if you don't feel fear, where are you living, man? It's a dangerous world. So if you're thinking, you've got to feel fear. Doing the right thing for the first time. It's terrifying, isn't it? I mean, you've all done it. You've all done it, we've all done it. And you know what it feels like? It's just really, really scary. It's risky, it's often painful, but the people who don't feel fear are three things. Firstly, truly fearless people are dangerous because they don't care about the consequences. They're stupid because they don't understand the consequences, or they're just simply lying to you and themselves. Feeling fear is the heart of fearlessness. Next, please. Thank you. It's okay to be scared because all that's saying is you're about to do something really, really brave. Okay? You're about to do something brave. So get used to that feeling of bravery. Okay. Moving on, please. Okay. Why do we need it? Well, we're running out of time. Believe it or not, a lot of people don't believe it, the climate is changing. Our oceans and country are being polluted. Our species are becoming extinct. We are having an environmental issue where with the AI, etc., it's more likely we'll have increasing poverty rather than negative. And the old ways of managing haven't worked in our lives. Now, you might not want to face that because it's too fearful, too scary. But if you just read, it's the truth. Now, the question is, ladies and gentlemen, do you think we can do something about it? Because there's nobody to do it other than us at any given moment. You can ask the politicians and scientists, but they need a movement. And a movement we need is people coming together to believe that we have to generate change. Doesn't mean you've got to sacrifice your lives, but you have to get behind the fact that the world has deeply, deeply changed. And we have to do it for our kids. If for no other reason, we have to be fearless for our children. We have to change the way it is. Okay. The business model we're playing with at the moment, the traditional capitalism we're working is, it fetishizes wealth accumulation. It makes being rich a really important thing. It actually increases the elites, I'll talk about that in a second, increases inequality, and it makes people far, far more vulnerable. Let's change again. I'm going to move faster, okay? Change, please. This is some of the reasons. That's the Amazon, rainforest, fires. You'll see the reasons. You might think it's a long way away, but it's not. It turns out that one of the most polluting companies in the world is Eskom. Forgive me if you're from Eskom. One of the most polluting countries in the world is South Africa per capita because of our dependence on fossil fuels. Okay? We have such critical issues, we can't get rid of it. Change, please. And we spend all the time in the pursuit of profit, as if profit is going to solve it. It turns out that the pursuit of profit, Milton Friedman's model of profitability, and he's a guy who founded this idea that the purpose of a company is to make profit and to pay it to shareholders, isn't doing anything. It's just widening the gap. The consequences we're paying for that in our country with poverty, with lack of delivery, internationally are so great that it can't work. A guy called Colin Mayer, who was Dean of Said Business School, written a book called Prosperity. He says the purpose of a company or an organization or a corporation is to create prosperity. And now prosperity is not just you or me, it's communal prosperity. It's creating a possibility that Thabo in Soweto, or Bali, or Henry, or Jane, whatever, that they will get the right sort of education they want, and that they will have the possibility to get decent jobs and decent lives. The more we're involved in our own fearful support of our own existence and our own jobs, the less we're engaged in a fearless pursuit of a better country and a better existence for our children. Moving on, please. Why we should be fearless? Let's have a quick look. I'm going to run through these. That's the Gini coefficient. That means the difference between rich and poor. Just so happens that the country that has the highest Gini coefficient in the world is South Africa. Yes, congratulations to us all. We have the highest difference between the rich and poor in the world. That means we have more people without money, and more of the money is in fewer hands than anywhere else. And whatever you want to call that, I don't care what we call it, it's going to have to change if we're going to make a future. However we want to change it, it's not about pushing that money into another elite, it's pushing that money and that welfare into the mass of people, our sons, your daughters, your nieces, your nephews, your grandmas, into their hands, so that they have decent lives, and we can do it. Next. And we have to be brave enough to stand up against corruption. These are all winners of awards. Investigative journalists, fantastic people. One on the right there is Pali van Veek, we gave her a scholarship. These are brilliant people from Tanzania around Africa who risk their lives to speak truth to power in the press. Pali was running around from house to house because she was under threat of death about 4 months ago. Okay? That's how fearless they are, and they're serving us, telling us the truth. Moving on, please. Okay. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this because I'll send it to you to read. It's just that the KPM fiascos and all the rest have created a huge amount of damage for us. So when you see people speaking truth to power, when you see the false facts of people who are fighting against some of those facts, We need to be fearless in keeping our intellects and our thoughts clear to see what is the truth, apart from our affiliation, our identity politics. We're identifying with this group or that group. Please don't identify with our groups. Identify with our children's future, all our children's future, because their future is interdependent. Their future is interdependent. All our children depend on all our children. Moving on. Okay. And the other things that corruption has done is take loads of opportunity away from people. It's taken money out of the economy. Educated and effective entrepreneurs who spent lives getting skills up don't get the tenders because somebody else does. And so your kids who spent 15 years being educated with your money don't get the job because somebody else has given their friend or somebody else who can't do the job that they ought to have done. Their education has been wasted. We have to fight against that. We have to have the capable people doing the work. That's the fearlessness we need to have. Next one, please. And this is a slide from ignorance. Oh, I don't think it doesn't matter. I didn't realize that wasn't right. Imagine you're the KPMG auditors. No, that wasn't right. No, I didn't understand. Fine. The next was, oh, well, I think I understood. There's something uncomfortable in me. I shouldn't do this. I'm going to deny the feeling. Is that fearful or fearless? It's fearful, isn't it? The next one. Okay, I see that, but my company is going to suffer if I'm going to do that. I'm going to turn a blind eye to that corruption. That means that Thabo and Bali are not going to get the job and the capability that they ought to have because they have the capability, because you've spent 15, 20 years raising them, giving them decent education, hoping they're going to have a decent future. We have to fight to give them that future. The next one, well, I'm going to collude tacitly with that. I know it's wrong, but I'm going to let it happen because of my company's going to do. And then you say, okay, well, I'm in this now. I'm just going to go for it. I'm going to make my company bigger. At least I'm going to keep my employees happy. 5,000 people, forget the other 10 million. And then finally we get a systematic capability of state capture where all the organs of control have been systematically taken over by a criminal elite, whatever you call it. That we have to fight. That is not fearlessness, that is fearfulness. Next, please. We have to be brave enough to change our economy. Let's look, go. That is the Japanese economy a while ago. Look, it's got all sorts of different pretty colored sectors. But all those colors mean these colors here, I don't know if this will work, it won't. These colors mean that it's ICT, car manufacturing. It's a very dense, diverse economy. It's brilliant. That's what Japan exported. Fantastic, big, brilliant, diverse economy. Let's look at Vietnam 20 years ago. Next. Vietnam, look at them, coffee and petroleum. That's what they did. Now, see, there's very little of this blue and the purple there 20 years ago. Look now. Next. That's what Vietnam did in 20 years. Go back one. Yeah, well done. You're fantastic. We briefed about this. Very well did. That's what it was. Forward. That's what it is now. What a change in that economy. Look at South Africa 20 years ago. Next. That's South Africa 20 years ago. Look how that economy is digging things out of the ground and selling it. Look at those colors. Look at the change in South Africa. Next. Oh, you're trying to... Okay, back. Next. Doesn't matter, does it? Doesn't matter because nothing's changed. Nothing's changed. We're hanging on to the past. Hanging on to the old jobs. Hanging on to the things that kept the elites in power. The future is IT, ICT, imagination, creativity, new industries, diverse economies, education, supporting your kids, giving them the capability to go. Us all being fearless for the progress that we can make this country a fantastic country. Because we can. We don't destroy it. We have to diversify, make 10 times the number of sectors. This is a strong economy. Next. Those are our, plug for Henley. These are our billboards. Hashtag no more bribes. Hashtag corporate activism. That's what we put on the side of the road because we believe in this stuff. Next. How to be fearless. So the last few minutes, the last while, I'm going to spend a little time talking about how we might be able to become more fearless in our work. Now, I'm not assuming for an instant that you are not fearless. I'm assuming, all of us here, that you are enormously brave. I think I take that for granted, right? Yeah? Yeah. What I am assuming, though, is that the next step to be even more brave seems terrifying. It seems really, really difficult. It seems destructive to our well-being, but it's not. I'm also assuming that we want to be even more brave and more fearless and do these things, but part of us doesn't know how. And I may be wrong. is holding you. Next. No, not next. Feel the fear, but do it anyway. They can laugh at themselves. Somehow they can laugh at life. And they also accept you to be unconventional. We're brought up to be very straight-laced. You know, yes, I'm going to be very good. You look at me, I'm respectable, I'm wearing a suit, and I'm really cool. You know, what about that other part of you? We'll come back to that now. Okay, next. Here's a book on how to be fearless. Next. 5 principles. Next. Stop it there. Yep. That's what that book says. Do buy the book. I'll send everything. That looks like a good book to me. Next. Don't even try to read this. Anything, like I used to be a pilot for a living. I used to be an airline captain. And this is something about fear. Do you want a scared airline captain? Do you want a scared dentist? No. Do you want a scared surgeon? No. Do you want them to fear? Do you want them to be fearless? Do you want a fearless pilot? No, not really. You sure you want a fearless pilot? Okay, let's go. Thunderstorm. Let's go. This is going to be fun. Oh. Ladies and gentlemen, watch out for turbos. Let's show them. I don't think you want a fearless pilot. Let's go lower. Let's break the minimum. Let's go lower than we want to. Let's see what it feels like being in the middle of a thunderstorm. That sounds like fun. I don't think you want a fearless pilot. You want a fearless dentist or a fearless surgeon. Okay. Not like that. Everybody is and should be fearful. Being fearless doesn't mean you're not fearful, paradoxically. Okay? We all need to face, the thing that's hardest for any of us to face is our own inner critic. We either are so scared of it we give away to it, or it's so scary we don't look at it. How do we get a decent balance? As a pilot, when you're facing fear, you must be causing problem. Alert, if you sign off this audit, it's very likely we're all going to lose our jobs, our brand will be damaged, okay, and it will cause a lot of trouble to people. You're legitimizing corruption, and it'll turn out, if you don't watch out, that people will be buying coal, sending on the international market at 3 times the price, and selling us rubbish coal that causes a power cut. Oh, sorry, that actually happened. That actually happened. And then they say, if you sign off this audit, I'm going to report you to the directors and to the FSB. And then, emergency, I refuse to let you sign off this audit. I'm going to the press. This has to stop. Okay, that's what should happen in PACE. So we can practice this methodology. Okay, thank you. What happened when we were a pilot, and I'll give you another pilot thing, and this is something they actually did to stop fearful. A lot of planes were having accidents and incidents some years ago, about 20 years ago in the UK. And they couldn't figure it out, so they said, we're going to ask all the pilots and all the engineers and all the companies and everybody to write a report on anything that goes wrong. We promise we won't put it in the press, we promise you take the name out of it. And so they started doing it. And then it's called confidential human incident report procedure, sure. And then as pilots in the whole country, we all got reports. We were flying across the Atlantic at 38,000 feet. The captain, myself, and the engineer all woke up at the same time, 500 kilometers past our turning point, low on fuel. Okay? I was so tired because I'm working 3 times the duty hours I should have done that I fell asleep while I was taxiing before I took the airplane off. Okay, and all these reports started coming in. It's like, wow, what's going on? And then immediately the pilot community started correcting them. Let's see the next slide. What started happening is that we increased the transparency by driving out fearfulness. Next. Suddenly there seemed to be danger everywhere. Next. And then suddenly we all started sorting it out. And then the risk profile went down. So the old TQM thing is drive out fear. It was Deming's thing, drive out fear, drive out fear, drive out fear. We're tempting in hierarchies to manage by fear. It can only work against us. We have to drive that out. This is another one. This is a Korean War pilot. It turns out that fear narrows you. There's this wonderful example of do you remember Dwight York and Cole, what's his name? Andy Cole and Dwight York, Manchester United, right? Fabulous player. There's this wonderful shots of Andy will know where Dwight is, Dwight will know where Andy is, and they will pass. It was like a dream. It was like watching the All Blacks. Sorry, Springboks. just a dream. But there was another video of these two people. It was like, it was as if Neymar and what's his name? Messi, who were in the same team and they hated each other. There's a shot of the ball flying into the penalty area. It's coming down to the empty goal. And then all you see in the camera are these two people running towards the ball. They hate each other, they're competitive. And just before their ball, they slam into each other. The ball trickles over outside the goal. Why? Because competition and fear and hatred literally narrows our neurology. It narrows us down so we become very target orientated. And your peripheral vision goes. So you can't see. So this is something from the Korean War where the problem was that the American pilots were being outmaneuvered by their enemy, and so what they did was they told them to chill, they gave them better visibility, and they told them first, observe, learn to observe, stop panicking, just see what's around you. And then take a deep breath in a microsecond and orientate yourself to what's going on, and then decide. Don't just jump out of panic, because what happens is unless you're chilled, you can't see sideways. Unless the people around you are chilled, you can't see sideways. Doesn't mean you don't act first. So that's the OODA loop. Make reality your friend. Next one. And only a couple more, then we'll finish. I love this one. Now, I need somebody who's extremely handsome and very, very tall. So many to choose from. Well, I'm going to choose somebody. And I'm not going for handsome, I'm going for beautiful. Would you mind coming up? May I take you on stage? What's your name? Ophelia. John. Very nicely. Ophelia's going to help me with this. Okay. Professor Ophelia Ledimo, Department of IOP and UNISA. Welcome to my colleague. Okay. Can you just stand there? You just stand there looking kind of relaxed. I'm not sure this is going to work with you, but it might. So tell me, if I pay Ophelia enough, if we pay Ophelia enough, great person that she is, do you think she will use her intellect? Yeah? Definitely, definitely. Go back. Go back. Go back. And again. Thank you. I must keep my hands still. Yeah. Do you think she will more or less do what she's told? Will she do her research, her teaching, manage the department with brilliance if we pay her enough? Yeah? Yeah? And do you think she will also work hard if we pay her enough? Right. How much of Ophelia have we got here if we have her diligence, her obedience, and her intellect? Tell me, sorry, tell me when to stop. I'm going to move up here. Tell me how much of Ophelia is at work if we have those three things? About there? About there, right? So we've got Ophelia about from the navel down, okay? Hey, welcome. Welcome from the navel down, Ophelia. But there's more to Ophelia, isn't there? What else is there to Ophelia? Family, passion, creativity, taking initiative, doing things on your own, being fearless. What? Aspiration. So if we have Ophelia's initiative, I'm going to do things, creativity, and her passion, and we've got that, have we got a lot more Ophelia at work? Tell me when to stop. Sorry, don't look at this because we got about that much, right? We got a lot more of Ophelia. Now, here's the rub. If I pay Ophelia more, will she be more passionate? No. If I pay Ophelia more, will it guarantee she'll be more creative? So these are voluntary things. So these things that are incredibly important to make Ophelia the brilliant professor that she is, and you are, okay, we can't pay her to do. Fearlessness, you can't pay people to be fearless. You can inspire them, you can lead them, you can help them. So let's go next, next, and next. Thank you. And what it means is up here, there's a lot more emotion and autonomy up here. And how do you manage people? How do you manage people if you want them to be emotional? Do you manage them coldly? Have you got to be emotionally available? Does that mean you have to be fearless? It does, doesn't it? If you want people to do really, really well, you want them to be creative, you've got to be fearless and available. You've got to open up. You have to open up. And you have to set the circumstances that shows that you really care. Ophelia, a big hand for Ophelia. And a great workshop. Thank you very much. Okay, I've only got a couple more minutes. Let's go to the next one or two, and then I'll finish. Okay. The other thing here, this is just to show, this is a graph. On the left-hand side, how effective you are. On the right-hand side, how much stimulus you get. If you're not stimulated, you normally, you go to sleep. Okay? If you're too stimulated, you get paranoid, all your psychoses start parading in public, okay? What you need is just enough stimulation. So we need enough anxiety, we need a bit of fear, but not too much. Okay, next. I'm not even going to show this because it's too small. It's about how not to crash airplanes. But what it is saying that being candid and having fast feedback is really important for anything. Okay, next. Next. Too much power distance, like that flying example where everyone's scared the captain, causes problems. Next, okay, leave it. Next one, too little power distance, where the pilots are on the same level, the directors on the same level, then everyone argues. Just enough respect or fear is what we need, okay? We have to manage our power relations very carefully. Next, and the final thing I really want to talk about, Viktor Frankl. Viktor Frankl was a concentration camp survivor, and he lost his whole family in concentration camps. He went through years in concentration camps. He turned out to be a father of a new field of psychology called logotherapy. And he talked about optimism. How can you be optimistic in the circumstances of a concentration camp? Well, it turned out that the pessimists didn't last. The optimists didn't last either, the wild optimists, because they were so deeply disappointed. But the tragic optimists, the ones who believed that life was worth living, in spite of pain, guilt, and fear, and death, in spite of pain, guilt, and death, that life was still worth living, those people survived. Those people were truly fearless. They absorbed all that and somehow could live. Next. So he says we make meaning from all three kinds of tragedy. We make meaning from pain and suffering, from learning from the fear experience and finding meaning. We've all been through pain. Some of us still in pain. Some of us know that in the end we reflect on that and we find deep meaning from whatever it is. Deep meaning also from guilt, from having done things to other people we wish you hadn't. And if you've never done that in your life, then you are my hero. And please tell me how not to, because I have. Most of us have. But we have to understand that guilt is simply signaling that we need to take responsibility for our actions. We need to grow into it. If we're going to be guilty shortly, in a little while, that we haven't done something about the situation we're in South Africa and the situation in the world, if we're going to be guilty when our children talk to us, Mum, Dad, what were you doing? Then we need to understand, we need to take accountability and perhaps change now. And finally, death. What he says there is, we're all going to die. I actually went to Rome recently, and it was this really thing, there were these 7 crypts built of human bones of all these Franciscan monks. And they just made all these artworks out of their bones. It's like the most macabre thing. But the guy told me the reason they do that is, I want you to know one thing. We were like you once, and one day you will be like us. So what Viktor Frankl says, well, live our life as if we're living it for the second time, okay? Knowing how we got it wrong the first time. Live our life as if we're living it for the second time. That will give us fearlessness. That will give us a real deep sense of depth and achievement. It's bizarre, it's weird, but it's strangely the most optimistic thing you can do. Tragic optimism. Hope, happiness, love in the face of everything we face. We've got a great country to build. You're going to build it. I'm going to serve you in every way I can. Next. Thank you very much.
I think when I'm running the poll on this particular topic, it's running through the roof in terms of engagement. And as you can see, Dr. Foster Pedley is a very engaging presenter. Can you all agree on that? As pilots are, always letting us know about the turbulence and the height we are in and what town is on our left and what time is on our right. So a few questions though, that you could field from the audience. It's quite a few questions, but because of time, I'm just gonna give them, if we can have a quick short burst of answers on that. How can one, this is from Tembam Kizi, how can one be fearless in an authoritarian protocol-driven environment?
How can one be fearless in an authoritarian protocol? Do you ever have an authoritarian protocol in your own mind? Is your mind ever authoritarian with you? Yeah, right? You need to be fearless with that thing before you even start to be fearless with that thing out there. All the work starts inside. Don't just take on authoritarianism. What you need to do on those things, don't be fearless stupidly. Understand how fear, understand the consequences. But don't be so fearful that you stay in a corrupt or a damaging environment, in an abusive relationship. And authoritarianism, over-authoritarian, is an abusive relationship. It's an assault on our whole humanity. I'm terribly sorry, it's really difficult because we need to have that job to pay for our children, to do all that sort of stuff. All you can do really is work at it, change, call out if you can do, but perfect yourself, because by perfecting ourselves, we will get that next level of job, and you will not be authoritarian. That's all I can say. Okay.
Another question. What is the biggest challenge of being a fearless person in the workplace?
Biggest challenge? I think, to be honest, I think because being fearless is not one thing, it's a journey. You're going to make mistakes one way or the other. And you're going to be too fearful, you're going to be too fearless. And you're going to get hurt either way. I think the biggest challenge is knowing it's a learning journey and it's going to be painful. And even bigger than that is holding on to the fact that this is really worth doing. Because what you're doing is we're recovering our whole selves back into our work. When you're fearful, we are limited. When we're fearless, start looking people in the eyes as equal. You know? I lived in New Zealand. If you can't look at people in the eyes, whoever they are, if I can't look at you in the eyes, and we're not equal in my mind, okay? And I hope the same with me, then the New Zealanders won't take any notice of me. Anyone who looks down or looks up on somebody else crazily thinks how big I am. They're not worthy of respect. So it's the whole culture. What is it about us? We're different, okay? We're a different color. You know, we know that science says that there is no science of race, by the way, so there's actually DNA, I'm probably closer to him and to you, sorry to say, even though I'm sort of a pale skin. Yeah, but that's how it is. You know, so how can we be equal? So I think the biggest thing is how do we maintain that level of mutual respect and equality? And know we're all on the same boat. That's all I can say. Thank you.
One more question. What is the most toxic myth of fearless leadership?
Most toxic myth of fearless leadership is simply that. Let's go! Yes, we have to be fearless. And the most toxic myth has got to be a parody of male warriorness. Okay? He for she. Me too. The most toxic myth is that we need to re-engage everything around leadership so we work with across genders, with genders, reducing violence against women, helping women stand up and grow, you know, and also standing up against projection from women onto men as all men are bad because they're not. That's also wrong. You know, what we have to do is find a way that we're standing, supporting each other, lifting ourselves, our families, our daughters and our partners into the position they should be. The most toxic myth is that that is impossible. I don't believe it is. Okay, thank you.
From Anonymous, wonderful presentation, Professor Foster Pedley, caught my attention from the first word. That's from the audience.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And just before you go, IPM would just like to give you a little gift in thanks.
I'm allowed to take it.
Well, we're just going to give it to you anyway. And you can throw it to the audience if you want.
I appreciate it very much, but I'm afraid I can't. Thank you
You
very
can't? Okay, fine. It's hers then.
much. I appreciate the full TV.
Thank you, Nadine. Thank you very much.